You are tuned in to another edition of Americana Music Profiles, brought to you by Americana Rhythm Music Magazine and AmericanaMusicMagazine.com. I'm your host, Greg Tutwiler. Let's jump right in to the next exciting interview. New York singer-songwriter, guitarist, JL, loves making music on his Ovation guitar, and he likes to refer to himself as an urban folk musician. In this edition of Americana Music Profiles, we talk to Jay about his new single, Ease Up, and his music and life not only in New York, but also in Geneva, Switzerland, where he attended the Conservatory of Music. Hi, Jay. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me today.
Absolutely. Glad we could get a chance to talk. And I am talking to you, I presume, from somewhere in New York City?
Yes, that's correct. Actually, Upper West Side is where my little studio exists.
Cool. So personal studio, or do you work with other musicians there as well?
No, it's actually a studio apartment that is also a house for all the equipment I can fit in.
Yeah, okay.
Not much, but
yeah, right. Surround yourself with all the cool stuff, right?
Right. So I demo all the songs, prepare them before we go into the studio.
Sure, yeah.
Or rehearsals first. So, yeah.
So tell me how this life in music started for you.
Oh, great question. Surrounded by music, I guess ever since I can remember, and but no one in my family was in the business.
Okay.
And but lots of music all around, and radio was on, of course, before the internet came along, and lots of television shows with music, live performers as well. So it's always been part of the normal way of life. All celebrations had music, dancing.
Right.
And from there, got curious about it, and mostly because, some of the songs you hear, at least for me, make you feel so great, give you that great energy and make you feel like you can almost do anything, whether it's, make the time go faster on the treadmill or, give you the courage to approach, a girl or boy, whatever your thing is. But, and that's what I wanted to replicate for, it's like, wow, how does that happen? Because it doesn't happen with every song, right? We don't react the same way to every piece of music.
Right.
But I wanted to do that. I wanted to pass that on. I thought, hey, it would be great to be able to write that kind of music that gives people positive energy, really.
So when did you come to the realization that this is something you wanted to do as a career? When did that become true for you?
It was sort of right out of or around the time of high school, end of high school, and then I went to the Conservatory of Music in Geneva in Switzerland for a while, and then came to New York and moved here and was able to join bands and work and do things in the music world. As nutty as it is.
Yeah. Is this something?
That's how it took off.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Is this something that you get to do now full time, or is there other things that you do also?
No, I do other things as well. The incredible commitment to writing songs and promoting yourself as an artist is not that lucrative for me. So yeah, it's it's on and off. Making money is really difficult from that. So depending on the gigs that come up, you're able to spend some time and deliver on what other musicians need from you, whether it's a session or a short term, tour or a little bit of collaboration on other things. But for the most part, I'm interested in, again, doing my thing, as they say, right?
Right.
So in that respect, it's a roller coaster ride, of course.
Yeah. I was reading in your bio notes that you consider yourself a pop songwriter, singer-songwriter, but you even use the word urban folk music.
Which, go ahead. Please.
No. Well, I wanted to have you elaborate on that. That's an interesting term.
Sure. I mean, it's always been a bit of a struggle to reconcile genres with me, because I have really two genres that I use when I listen to other people's music. One, I like it, but I don't think I'm going to listen to it again, or if it happens, I'm not going to turn it off and throw it out of the window or something. And the second one is, wow, I like it, and play it again. I want to hear that again. Wow, I need to check this out. How was that put together? And it doesn't matter whether it's a Chopin piece, right? I don't listen to every single nocturne that he wrote, but some of them are just like, wow. And same with rap music, if you put that at the other end of the spectrum, and it's like, oh wow, this is cool, whether it's clever lyrics by 50 Cent or Eminem, or it's just like, wow, that is cool. So when I write music, I'm not thinking in terms of, wait, where is that going to be released, right? What blog is going to give me a review because it's right in the pocket of the people they reach out to, and that may explain why, so part of an explanation maybe as to why it's difficult for me to make music as a solo artist, but I mean make money as a solo artist, but fitting into these classifications, when you buy a record and everything on the record sounds the same, right? And there's value in that. There's a value because if you're in the mood as a listener to listen to, romantic classical guitar for a quiet evening at home while you read a book,
right?
You don't want the third piece on the record to be like a, pounding disco piece.
Yeah.
But from a writing standpoint and from my standpoint, it's like I prefer many different styles. So it includes that. It includes sort of bringing together the more urban roughness of certain sounds, and yet have, a lyrical approach and a guitar approach that's more folksy. Wherever that goes, that's style.
Right.
I don't know that it has a life, a shelf life.
Right. So
standard of it.
I would imagine, and I'm asking out of curiosity as well, performing that style or niche of music that you call your own. How do you find the right audience for your music?
Yes,
in an environment like New York City versus if you were living somewhere in Virginia or North Carolina.
Right, and I have to say, I don't have that much experience with the last two places you named. But on records, you have the option to do that. On making those records available or those songs available via, digital distribution, you have the option to do that, and you can send a link to someone who is likely to be interested in the style, whether it leans towards something more rock, independent, stuff as opposed to a more country pop. But performance, as you were asking, it's tricky, and in New York, it's more a question of picking the right place, and certainly mostly just leaving it as a guitar and trio band, so that it comes off, it has the edge, it has the simplicity, and the arrangements, the guitar-driven arrangements, like keep the softer or more folksy side of things.
Mm-hmm. I read where you your instrument of choice is a nylon string Ovation guitar, which I would imagine gives you a different sound, obviously, than steel strings, for sure.
For sure, yes. And it's really comes from having, studying classical guitar and really
Yeah.
liking
Okay.
some of those pieces. It has that really particular sound. The ovation allows you to mic it, and it has that ovation sound that you hear also with the metal strings, because it has that sort of slap thing to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty unique in that sense. I don't see Ovation's guitar that often out there anymore in the world, but
Right.
it's something that I really like, and it's also recording wise and interesting, because the guitar is really, really precise. The tonality, the intonation is really good. Because I don't know, most of it is plastic. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but whereas a classical guitar, at least the ones I have, they're not extremely expensive. They tend to give you challenges with the tuning, and
Sure.
it's more difficult to get that consistency for me anyway. I mean, you really need to be very, very precise
Uh-huh.
as you move through the neck back and forth, and adjust at least with the guitars that I have.
As a songwriter, where do you find your influences coming from?
Yeah, great question, because I can be again, seduced by great lyrics in some songs, and others, melodies, and there are obviously writers out there from my standpoint who bring things together really well, and overcome these niche challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to lean towards positive messages, and whatever angst or anger or frustration I feel, like everybody else on the planet, I don't think that's what I want to pass on. So I tend to go for hopeful, messages and situations that I try to like convert it into that. So, if I have a great experience, with my puppy or something, I'm like, okay, so what would be a piece of music and lyrics
Yeah. Okay.
that convey that?
Right.
So I look for that, and but the starting point is always the music. It's always, I'm playing my guitar, for hours, and then suddenly there's like this thing that happens, this, moment,
Sure.
these chord changes, and I'm like, wow. And then I start looking for lyrics that match that, and situations that match that
Right.
in my experience, and go like, hey, yeah, that would carry the message really well, So
Have you been able to identify a particular kind of listener that resonates with your music?
it's a challenge, I mean, there's obviously the live performance where people come up to you and are like, hey, this was cool, and people you can communicate with personally or directly or online. But beyond that, it becomes really a challenge, because you have to rely on, again, fitting in,
Right.
if you will. So if you approach a radio station, and I've been lucky with the last bunch of songs, the single Ease Up Into Love has been played and is being played on a number of stations. And but you now you're approaching these folks who have obviously they have to make a choice for their listeners. They have to filter, and if you don't fit in very well, then it might be good, but they're
Yeah.
not going to play you.
Yeah.
And same thing with playlists. It's good that I'm like, wow, I'm grateful that people are paying attention and playing the song and listening and adding it to playlists. But it's to give you a sense of the profile of a listener, it's difficult. I don't have a good grasp on
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Do you have a particular type of venue that you find yourself in more often than not with your music?
Smaller places for sure. You
Yeah.
know, it's first of all, it's always a challenge to mobilize your crowd.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and you need to have so many fans to make sure that a percentage of them are available that night or that
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
because we all have so many other things we can be doing.
Sure.
And it's usually, and also I kind of prefer, you know, not that I had, you know, I have the opportunity to fill in the Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
I'll let you know when that happens,
Yeah.
how I
Okay.
feel
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Right.
But smaller places are cool, and any place where you have if not a direct control over the sound, where you know the sound is going to be decent.
Yeah.
You know, some larger places tend to be boomy, and you know, to get great sounds for everybody in the room, you know, they have to be really well designed, and the sound system has to be well designed, and
Sure.
all that
Yeah.
good stuff. And I prefer a great, you know, listening experience myself, as opposed to, you know, perhaps a different approach
Right.
to a live performance. It's not like, you know, I'm going to stand on a Marshall stack and jump into the crowd or something.
Yeah.
But hey.
So what's new musically? What do you have something that's about ready to come out? Are you working on some new material?
So right now I'm continuing to promote the EP Ease Up, and the song Ease Up Into Love, which is the first single. And I'm also writing for the next album, which is going to be released next year, beginning of the year, and writing as much as possible, writing as many songs as possible, and then staying away from them so that I, you know, have a fresh, or as fresh as possible, listening experience every time I get back to them. You know, I find that it's a challenge writing a great song, and that, you know, that you feel like, yeah, okay, I can play that for people. I think I did okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So
if the listeners want to check out Ease Up Into Love, or get your EP, or they want to come check out a show, what's the best way to do that? Connect with you?
Definitely go to the website, jl2222.com. And there, all the information will be made available. All the music is going to be there. And of course, for the most part, it's out in the world on the digital services that most people are familiar with.
And your schedule, performance schedule, is on your website as well?
Yep. That will appear there. There's nothing for the next few weeks, but as soon as something is locked in, it will be posted.
What's a long range goal? What's the next thing on your bucket list that you'd like to see happen in the next year or so?
Certainly, I would like to see more songs showing up on the radio, and that to me is the best, you know, feeling of being able to share great music, if that is deemed to be, at least by the DJs and programmers. And pass it on. You know, I may never get to talk to any of the folks who hear it, but as long as it's doing its work of giving people that buzz, you know, that wave of energy, that feeling of, hey, you know, this is cool. Here I am driving, and wow, that sounds great. You know, to me, it's really the number one, you know, goal. After that, anything that comes from it, ripple effects of it, and more offers to play places or hear from fans, and of course, sell music. It's you know, that is of course, you know, impossible to tell nowadays how things are going to go. I mean, if more and more people stream music,
hard to track.
It's a big challenge, because that doesn't pay whatsoever. You know, just the numbers, the math doesn't add up. You know, I don't know if it's important in this conversation, but you know, Spotify pays you $4 for 1,000 streams.
Wow.
Just about.
Yeah.
So it's you can't live.
Right. No. Yeah, I understand.
Unless, of course, you have this huge success.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then it has this mass appeal, and of course, everyone I know in this business is hoping for that kind of luck. But
right.
As an independent artist, I can't, finance that kind of marketing campaign that would possibly get people, so many people.
Yeah, no, I understand.
It ends up being organic. Whatever happens, it's
right.
There's only so much I can finance. So.
Yeah. Well, we certainly wish you the best with it, and
Thank you so
enjoy
much,
your
Frank.
music. Yeah, enjoy getting a chance to speak with you, and certainly wish you the best in the future with the new music coming up.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in to this episode of Americana Music Profiles. Find us on iTunes at Americana Music Profiles and on the internet at AmericanaRhythm.com.